Through the course of their international exploits in the 20th century, the Spanish national team had always been labeled as underachievers. Despite having players such as Alfredo Di Stefano, Telmo Zarra, Emilio Butragueño, Fernando Hierro over many generations, La Roja only has one European championship to its name. They were never regarded as contenders, since they often failed to get to the knockout stages of major events. This was until the Spaniards developed their own brand of football, tiki-taka, a mentality centered on holding the ball and having their opponents chase them around all game. Let's have a look at how Spain rose to become the greatest team in the world and eventually becoming world champions. The appointment of Luis Aragones in 2004 marked Spain's beginning of transitioning into a footballing behemoth. Nicknamed the Wise Man, he was analytical in his thinking and not afraid to make big decisions. After Spain was knocked out of the 2006 World Cup, he looked back at the performances and decided to follow the Dutch ideology of the 1970s, to concentrate on playing with the ball rather than creating more opportunities up front. Luis observed this and stressed position play and encouraged players who were adept with the ball at their feet. The old Spanish teams were accustomed to moving the ball forward through the wings and hitting a cross-in. Aragonés made significant changes, replacing big-name players like Wantino, Joaquin, Lopez, and Mikel Salgado with players who were more comfortable with the ball at their feet and had outstanding playmaking ability like Iniesta, Xavi, and David Silva. Luis adopted the tiki-taka style to lead Spain to victory in the 2008 Euros, their first major title in 44 years. Luis stood down after the 2008 Euros competition, despite reports that he still wanted to remain in the post. He had left a well-drilled Spanish side for a successor, Vicente del Bosque, and the Spanish exploits were just beginning. Spain had a flawless record in the World Cup qualifiers, winning all 10 of their games, and they were the favorites going into the tournament. Del Bosque made the smallest of changes to the lineup, replacing Marco Senna with Sergio Busquets. A critical alteration, since the job of the defensive midfielder maintained the structure of the defense and midfield. He reverted to a 4-3-3 formation, adding Xabi Alonso in the mix, and Piqué were chosen to pair with Puyol in the center of the defense. Having the technically talented Xavi at his disposal, Vicente used him in a more adventurous position, giving La Roja a 4-2-3-1 structure in attack as Xavi was given the freedom to drive the midfield. When the squad was announced, it was mostly made up of Barcelona and Real Madrid players, and there was a lot of excitement in the air since everyone in Spain anticipated their team to win the World Cup. They put Poland to bed with a 6-0 victory in their last warm-up game and looked like the side to beat coming into the opening game of the World Cup. Vicente was cautious and claimed that his players must be humble in order for Spain to win their games. Almost ironically, Spain would lose their first game 1-0 to Switzerland, despite not doing much wrong. Spain missed the finishing touch required to win the first World Cup game, and now faced Honduras in the following encounter, which would determine their destiny. They brushed the South Americans away due to a brace from David Villa, and their confidence and style of play brought back memories of the 2008 Euro winning team. Spain's last group stage encounter was either all or nothing. A victory would ensure qualification, while a defeat would mean an early return home. They faced Chile, a well-oiled machine led by Marcelo Bielsa. The Chileans attempted to battle back in the first half, but 2 goals from Iniesta and David Villa made it smooth sailing as their opponents were reduced to 10 men. Chile got one back, but it was in vain as Spain won 2-1. The round of 16 encounter against Portugal meant that one of the Giants would be going home empty-handed. The match was billed as a duel between Iberian neighbors, but it wasn't much of a competition, as Portugal's goalkeeper Eduardo emerged as the top player for the Portuguese side. David Villa found himself on the scoreboard once again, this time beyond the hour mark, when he blasted in the game's lone goal. Spain triumphed 1-0 to go on to the quarterfinals. The quarterfinal encounter was against Paraguay. After the usual big names, France, Italy, England, Argentina, and Brazil had all been knocked out in the previous round. Del Bosque underlined the necessity of humility and respect for their opponents, since he did not want to go back home from here. Both teams missed penalties as David Villa came to Spain's rescue again, scoring the lone goal of the game as Spain advanced to the semis with a 1-0 triumph. The draw versus Germany meant a rematch of the 2008 Euro finals. The Germans were the ideal opponent for the Spaniards since the game was evenly fought. Carles Puyol would head home the game's only goal, giving the Roja a ticket to the finals as they triumphed 1-0 and advanced to their first World Cup final. The final between the Netherlands and Spain was noted for its ferocity, lost chances, flying challenges, and 14 cards in the game, 13 yellow and 1 red. The game went into extra time as both teams missed great scoring chances. The goalkeeping heroics of Iker Casillas can be still remembered to this day, as he almost single-handedly kept Spain in a tie, pulling save after save to ensure his clean sheet. Finally, a pass from Cesc Fabregas would find Iniesta in the open, and Iniesta would volley home to bring the World Cup to Spanish soil for the first time ever. It is impressive to note that the final 4 matches of Spain's World Cup run all ended with the same scoreline, 1-0, which is as much an ode to their rock-solid defense as it is to their ability to keep the ball moving amongst themselves. The World Cup in South Africa was famous for many things, including being the first World Cup to be hosted in Africa, the vuvuzelas, and the beautiful sights of the country, but that is nothing compared to the fame and repute that the Spanish received. The philosophy of tiki-taka, brought together by an ideology that began long before the World Cup, assisted the Spanish in bringing the World Cup home and cementing the mark of Spain's golden generation in history.